Hi everyone and welcome to another painting tutorial. Today I'll take you through how I painted this camo cloak with the activated camo for this Raven Guard Space Marine Eliminator. So over a Chaos Black undercoat and with a coat of Abaddon Black already applied as well. I didn't really feel like it was necessary to show you that, but yes, it does have a coat of Abaddon Black as the finish is different to Chaos Black. But with that done, I'm just going to begin doing some geometric patterns, beginning with some Dark Reaper. Now my best advice for doing this, especially if it's your first time, is just make sure you have a look at some images of different camo cloaks just to get an idea of how they're sort of done. And also just sort of randomizing the patterns as much as you possibly can. Now initially when doing the pattern itself, try to get it as neat as you can, but don't stress if the lines aren't perfect, because you can always go back to the previous color and just fix up the lines a little bit. So as you can see, a few different shapes there. So yeah, the more variety of shapes you have, the better it's going to look, in my opinion. And also just try and get a decent amount of space between them as well. Doesn't have to be really far apart, but essentially you just want to leave a little bit of space for the following colors to come. So with the Dark Reaper now done, I decided to use Thunderhawk Blue for the second lot of the geometric patterns. And again, just going to be doing these randomly across, but you do want to try and link them up just a little bit, even if they're touching, as you can see there, by the more sort of triangular shaped geometric pattern. I'm just going to get it to almost touch on that one. And as you can see as well, a lot of the patterns are, so some of them are smaller and some are larger. Again, this sort of just adds a lot more to the effect, as opposed to them all being sort of the same size. So you want them to be as random as possible. I think another really important thing to remember when doing this is to not overthink it. Just once you have those shapes, you know, even if you just have a little think about them and then just sort of just start applying them randomly, the better it will look. And every now and then, if you want to put one through, just like I've done, so it overlaps one of the previous colors, that's absolutely fine as well. Another thing you'll find is as each color progresses, especially if it's over a darker color, so for example the Thunderhawk blue straight over the black, you will find that you need to do a second coat just to cover it, but that's absolutely fine. Just really take your time with it. So with the Dark Reaper and Thunderhawk Blue now done, I decided to go with Fenrisian Grey. Now these are colours I've just chosen because I thought they would really suit the Raven Guard chapter for the Eliminator's cloak. So as you start getting up to colours that are quite bright as opposed to the other colours, you just want to make sure you take some extra time to really get those shapes as neat as you can. As correcting things at this point can be a little bit more difficult. Definitely still doable, but it's just that much easier to get it right the first time. So as you can see, I didn't do all of the geometric patterns at the bottom because of this next step. So this is the part where I'll be doing the activated cloak. So I'm going to start with some Stegadon scale green and just begin doing some random sort of lines all across the sort of center of the cloak, and just follow that all the way around to the other side of the cloak. So with the Stegadon scale green now done, I'm just going to use some Sotek green and follow over the Stegadon, but I want to make sure I leave some of that Stegadon scale green visible as well. And as you can see, I'm just adding some dot points just between all of the lines. So this will essentially give the effect of the power of the cloak being activated as it surges upward. So with the Sotek green now done, I decided to use some Temple Guard blue for this next step. Now essentially just going over some of the Sotek green and all of the dot points as well. And as you can see, I just dived back to some Sotek green, and of course you can always do this if you just need to go back and touch up any of the paintwork, as the Temple Guard blue was a little bit too thick for my liking. So with the Temple Guard blue now done, I decided to do one more of the bluish green sort of highlights, and I figured Baharoth blue would be a nice final touch for this. So mostly just for the dot points of this. And also just slightly over the previous highlights as well, but mostly just on the one side. Now, I really did want to thin some of these lines down quite a bit, so, I mean, as you can see there, the highlight was just a little bit too thick, so I've decided to go back to Stegan on Scale Green for this part. And now, just to finish off this step, I'm just going to go over all of the dot points again, but just with some white this time to finish it off. Now, for the bases that I have for my Space Marines, I wanted to use some Astro Granite Debris, as that, of course, is what I'll be using for the back side of the base for this one. So I have used a little bit of water with this just to help spread it out a little bit more evenly. And also when doing this step, you don't really want to put on really thick layers of the texture paint as well, as you want it to be relatively subtle overall. So as you'll see, I do sort of move it around a bit. And again, just to tie it in with the bases that I do for my Space Marines, I'm just going to use some German Grey by Vallejo and just some black by Vallejo as well. Now, the one mistake I made on the cloak here is that you do, for this effect, want to leave some of that camouflage visible as the line is sort of going up the cloak. It just makes it look a little bit more realistic, so that was a mistake I made, unfortunately, on this miniature, and it was a little bit too hard to go back and correct. With that being said, though, I was still pretty happy with the result of it. But as you can see, just that line there, as the power surges up the cloak, you want to have it as though it's sort of slowly fading away, if that makes sense. I do plan on doing some more Eliminators for different chapters for my channel, so I'll make sure I give it a second go for one of my other Eliminators and show you exactly what I mean. So with all of the other steps done, I'm just going to do a simple dry brush using Dawnstone Dry to start with, and then without washing the brush, I'm just going to grab some of the Longbeard Grey dry as well, both by Citadel, and just begin working over all of that. And as you can see, I've also done the base as well, so that's all ready to go. And here are some photos of the completed miniature. So I hope you found this tutorial useful today. If you did, make sure to leave a like, perhaps comment below of a Space Marine chapter you'd like to see next. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again very soon.